Sometimes, walking away isn't hard because you don't see the truth. It's hard because you keep hoping it will change. You see the signs, you feel the distance. You notice the way things don't feel right anymore. But instead of accepting it, you explain it. You tell yourself, maybe it's just a phase. Maybe things will get better. Maybe I just need to be more patient. And so, you stay. Not because it feels right, but because you're holding on to what it could become. And that's what makes it so difficult. Because the truth is, most people don't stay because they don't understand what's happening. They stay because they're emotionally attached to the possibility of something better. We don't stay because it's right. We stay because of what it could be. Because hope can be stronger than reality. It keeps you waiting. It keeps you trying. It keeps you believing, even when the pattern doesn't change. But there comes a point where the signs stop being confusing and start becoming clear, where what you feel can no longer be ignored. And if you see these signs, it may already be time to walk away. Let's begin. Sign number 1, they repeatedly disrespect your boundaries. At first, it doesn't feel like disrespect. It feels like misunderstanding. You tell yourself, maybe they didn't realize. Maybe I didn't explain it clearly. So you communicate. You express how you feel. You explain what bothers you. You set a boundary, not to control them, but to protect yourself. And in that moment, it feels like progress. They listen. They nod. They say they understand. Maybe they even apologize. And for a short time, things seem better. But then, it happens again. The same behavior, the same pattern, the same line crossed again. And this is where the confusion begins. Because now, it's no longer about misunderstanding. It's repetition. You start thinking, didn't we already talk about this? But instead of reacting, you explain again. You become more patient, more careful, more understanding. You adjust your tone, your words, your expectations, hoping that this time they'll truly get it. But the pattern doesn't change, because when someone truly respects you, they don't just hear your boundaries, they honor them. Not once, not when it's convenient, but consistently. And that's the difference most people overlook. Because words can create the illusion of change, but behavior reveals the truth. Anyone can say, I understand. Anyone can say, I'll do better. But real respect shows itself in what they do next. And when someone continues to cross the same boundary after you've made it clear, it's no longer a mistake. It's a choice. A quiet one, but a real one. Because every repeated action is a decision. A decision to ignore, a decision to dismiss, a decision to prioritize themselves over how it affects you. And slowly, without realizing it, you start feeling unheard, like your words don't carry weight, like your feelings don't fully matter. You begin to question yourself. Am I asking for too much? Am I being too sensitive? But deep down, you know the truth. You didn't ask for too much. You asked for basic respect. And respect doesn't need to be repeated. It doesn't need to be explained over and over again. Because when someone values you, they pay attention to what matters to you. Not just when you're watching, but all the time. So if you find yourself having the same conversation again and again and again, take a step back. Because patterns don't lie. People can say anything. They can promise anything. But what they repeat, that's who they are. And when someone repeatedly disrespects your boundaries, what they're really showing you is not confusion. It's their priority. And once you see that clearly, you stop trying to explain yourself to someone who already understands but chooses not to change. Because real respect doesn't need reminders. It shows up naturally. Sign number 2, you feel more anxious than at peace. Sometimes the biggest sign is not what they do. It's how you feel when you're around them. Because real connection doesn't leave you in constant tension. It doesn't make you question everything. It doesn't make you feel like you're always trying to figure things out. But when something isn't right, your mind starts to change. You begin to overthink. Small things start feeling important. A delayed reply, a different tone, a short message that didn't feel the same. And suddenly, you're thinking about it again and again, trying to understand what it means. You check your phone more. You reread conversations. You notice every small change in the way they respond. Not because you want to, but because something feels uncertain. And uncertainty creates anxiety. You find yourself waiting for a message, waiting for clarity, waiting for things to feel normal again. But that feeling doesn't last, because every time you feel close, something shifts again, and that shift pulls you right back into overthinking. This is where it becomes exhausting, not physically, but mentally, because your mind never rests. You're always analyzing, always trying to read between the lines, always trying to understand what they really mean. And slowly, you start losing your sense of peace, because peace comes from stability, from knowing where you stand, from feeling secure without needing constant reassurance. But when someone is inconsistent, that stability disappears. One moment, they make you feel important. The next, they make you feel uncertain. And your emotions start moving with them. Up when they're present, down when they pull away. And without realizing it, your mood becomes connected to their behavior. This is where the psychology matters, because your nervous system is always trying to protect you. It responds to patterns. When something feels stable, it relaxes. But when something feels unpredictable, it stays alert, watching, analyzing, trying to make sense of what's happening. And that's exactly what you feel. Not calm, but on edge. Not secure, but uncertain. And the longer this continues, the more it drains you, because you're constantly adjusting, trying to say the right thing, trying not to upset them, trying to keep the connection stable, even when it's not. But real connection doesn't require that much effort just to feel okay. It doesn't make you feel like you're walking on something unstable. It feels grounded. You don't have to guess. You don't have to chase clarity. You feel it without forcing it. So if you feel more anxious than at peace, more confused than certain, more drained than fulfilled, pay attention to that, because your mind might try to explain it, but your body already knows. Something isn't right. And once you start listening to that feeling, you stop ignoring the signals that have been there all along. Sign number 3, you're holding on to potential, not reality. Sometimes the hardest thing to let go of is not the person, it's the idea of what they could become. Because in the beginning, there were moments that felt real, moments that made you feel seen, moments that made you believe there was something special here. And those moments stay with you, even when everything else changes. Because when things start to feel off, you don't focus on the pattern. You go back to those good moments, the way they used to talk to you, the way they showed up at first, the way it felt before everything became confusing. And you hold on to that version of them. You tell yourself, this is who they really are. This is what it can be again. So instead of seeing what's happening now, you stay connected to what happened before. And slowly, without realizing it, you stop living in reality. You start living in possibility, in what it could become, in what it might turn into. You begin to ignore the present because the future feels more hopeful, even when the present keeps showing you something different. Because the truth is, patterns repeat, not occasionally, but consistently. And if something keeps happening, that is not confusion. That is reality. But hope has a way of blinding that. Because hope feels powerful. It makes you believe that things will change, that they'll become more consistent, that the version you saw will come back. And that belief keeps you there, even when nothing actually changes. This is how emotional attachment forms, not just through connection, but through expectation. Because when you believe something has potential, you invest in it. You give more time, more energy, more patience, not because it's giving you enough, but because you believe it eventually will. And that's where it becomes dangerous. Because you're no longer responding to what is real, you're responding to what you hope is real. So you stay, not because of how they treat you consistently, but because of how they treated you in moments. Moments that don't repeat, moments that don't last, but moments that were strong enough to keep you holding on. And the more you hold on, the harder it becomes to let go. Because now, you're not just letting go of a person, you're letting go of a future you imagined with them. But here's the truth. Potential is not reality. And no matter how strong it feels, it doesn't matter if it never becomes consistent. Because real connection is not based on what someone could be, it's based on who they are, consistently. So if you find yourself staying because of what it might become, instead of what it is, take a step back, look at the pattern, not the moments, because the pattern is the truth. And once you see that clearly, you stop holding on to what if and start accepting what is. It's not that you don't see the truth, it's that you keep giving it another chance. Because part of you still hopes that they'll change, hopes that things will go back to how they felt in the beginning. So instead of accepting what's happening, you keep trying to fix it. You ignore the repeated disrespect. You silence the anxiety you feel. You hold on to the potential, even when reality keeps showing you something else. And slowly, you stay longer than you should. Not because you don't understand, but because you don't want to let go. But there comes a moment where everything becomes clear, where the signs stop feeling confusing and start feeling undeniable. You see the pattern, not just once, but over and over again. And deep down, you realize something important. Nothing is going to change unless you do. Walking away is not losing. It's choosing yourself. It's choosing peace over confusion, clarity over constant doubt. It's deciding that you deserve something stable, something real, something that doesn't make you question your worth or your place. Because the truth is, the right connection will never make you feel this way. It won't make you chase clarity. It won't make you feel anxious more than calm. It won't make you hold on to what it could be because it already is. So if something inside you has been telling you to walk away, listen to it, because your intuition already knows the truth. And the moment you trust it, everything changes. If this made you see things differently, take that seriously. And if you want to understand people, emotions, and relationships on a deeper level, make sure to subscribe. Because the more you understand psychology, the less you settle for what doesn't feel right, and the more you choose what truly does. I'll see you in the next one.